Islam and greetings. It's your brother, Dr. Grand Sheik J. Page Bey of the Moorish Science Temple of America, founded by the noble prophet Drew Ali. I'm risen, giving all praise to Allah, highest honors to his holy and divine prophet, noble Drew Ali, honors to our forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we give honors to all the divinely led prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, to name a few. Honors to everything that is honorable. All honors to righteousness, goodness, peace on earth, and those angels, those spirits, those workers of good and light, such as yourselves who are here with us enjoying this program today. Honors to everybody who is seeking truth and righteousness, even if you may not know it yet. Give honors to you, and we hope that everybody leaves here with their cup full with something that they can take and that enlightens them with knowledge, information, and something that inspires you to get out here in the good fight of uplifting the fallen humanity. Welcome to the Sheik's table. If you've been with us for our other couple of episodes, we're going to, and you know how we start off, we're going to do a little something different today. We're going to get started with some breathing exercises from a good book that I have read. It's from back in the day. It's called The Hindu Yogi Science of Breath. And you know why I want to do this today is because I was in reflection and thinking about breathing and how intrinsically it's connected to the mind. And you know, we get caught up in our day. We get caught up in nervousness. We get caught up in anxiousness. We get caught up in situations where we feel overwhelmed. And the world is kind of in that state in general. And I'm here to give you an exercise that you can utilize and encourage you to remember when you're feeling those ways, sometimes all we really need is just a deep, conscious breath. You know, breath is life. So I'm going to give you a practice. We're going to start off today that way. If you will follow me, if you're at home or wherever you are and you can, sit back somewhere in a relaxed position. Do your hands in a way that, you know, feels comfortable to you. You see me sitting here like this a lot. I guess I could say there's many reasons, but then one simple reason. I'm completing the circuitry. I'm completing the circuitry. The human body is electric. So the tips of the fingers, you know, when we were younger, we used to watch these shows and cartoons where powers would come out of their fingers and stuff like that. Well, what we're doing is we're cycling that power and keeping that energy within ourselves, and we're building up our power. So if you wonder why I sit like this sometimes, that's one of the reasons. So, but sit comfortably. Some people like to sit like this and, you know, activate certain chakras and, you know, things like that. But just close your eyes. And what you're going to do is you're going to slowly start to breathe in through your nose into the pit of your stomach. Slowly, as you possibly can. You're going to try to breathe in for about a minute straight. Straight inhale for a minute. It's pretty challenging, but as you bring the breath into the lower stomach, start to imagine yourself slowly pouring water into a glass. And it's slowly filling up from the bottom, through the diaphragm, through the top of the collarbone, and expanding the breast all the way out. And then when we get to about that 50, 55 second mark, you should start to feel your head tingling. It might, you know, and you do what you can. Not everybody can make it to the minute, especially starting off. You might only got 25 good seconds in you, and that's okay. But then we're going to hold it for just a second, and then we're going to release it from our diaphragm through our open mouth in a big thrust. Then after we do that, we're going to take another quick but big and expansive breath into the pit of our stomachs, all the way up. Hold it for 5 seconds and tension your lower abdominal muscles. And then we're going to blow out in 3 successive hoots or puffs or whooshes, like that, right? 3, and get all that air out. Then we're going to get started. So let's try, if you would, okay? Remember, big breath in through the nostrils. Slowly for hopefully a minute. Ready? Begin. Big breath out. In through the nose, big breath. Three puffs out. Let it out. Feel that rush of energy, that heat, the chi, as we may call it. That's called pranayama. So we're talking about the science of the breath, and there's so many dynamics in breath and how it can be utilized to change dynamics within oneself, within one's thinking. I think sometimes that we undervalue just breath, one of the most simplest things that we do all through the day. But breath represents the divine. Think about it. When we deal with religion or our higher thoughts or our faith, we're oftentimes asked to believe in something or someone that we can't even see, that we can't readily touch or feel. But yet we're asked to have faith in it and trust in it as if it is realer than the tangible things in our life that we can. We're asked to love it more than friends and family and readily accessible relationships, putting that relationship with that unseen, that higher self, that most high God, the Almighty above all things. And to be disconnected from that, we are taught that that is death. Well, let's examine breath. Is not breath unseen? I can't see the breath that is going into my nostrils and filling my body. But yet, I know it's there. Yet, I trust it. Let me ask you, when's the last time you got anxious or nervous because you weren't sure if your next breath was going to be able to be taken? You do it unconsciously. Matter of fact, we take it for granted. We assume that we take a breath, and the next breath, we're going to take a breath. We don't think about not taking a breath in the next breath. We're not unsure of that. We have, for the most part, absolute and total faith in that. But as soon as we're underwater, soon as the toils and the troubles or the turmoils or something covers up the receptacles of breath. Oh, how important does it and how conscious does it come to be in our mind? How sweet one breath is when you've been held underwater for 2 minutes. How sweet that breath is when you've had to cover up your nose and get away from noxious chemicals or gases or anything like that. Do we ever stop to think that we can go without food for a month? We can go without water for almost 2 weeks. But how long can you go without the sweetness of the thing you can't see the most, the breath that's around you? 4 or 5 minutes tops before you, pass out. And then what's going to happen? Your body's going to automatically start to breathe now that you're unconscious. And if it's available, the air around it, the mind will still spark the functions of the lungs to intake the breath. So let us not discount how important breath is and utilize these things that are around us to understand our relationship with the Almighty. We can't see him, but we need him. And we need the Almighty more than we even need the air that we're breathing. These are similitudes. I got to give honors to the Prophet Muhammad. In the Quran of Muhammad of Mecca, it talks about, God, Allah being closer to you than your jugular vein. Talking about the similitudes of nature and the divine nature, how they mirror each other in a way. And from these things in our nature, in our immediate view of the world and what we intake and what we touch and feel, in each situation, there's an opportunity to get closer to the Almighty One who created them or who allows them to exist. So, never discount the breath and how much you really honor it. Reflect on that. I think it's so important that we start to realize these things in this day and age. Getting back to our spiritual significance and essence of self in a time and in a world that has, in many respects, seemed to go mad, or at least the madness has come out of the box. It's almost like Pandora's box has opened. I talked to some of my family and some of the elders, and they say, hey, a lot of the stuff that's going on now, it was happening back then. It's just that now it's everywhere. It's on social media. It's on the news. It's, some of the atrocities that happen in the human state, unfortunately, have always been around. And that's why we have to learn to connect to that essence of self that is a little bit beyond the fleshly things, so that we're not so caught up in the sadness and the atrocities that can be performed when we're thinking from a lower nature and we're surrounded by individuals who may be thinking in that nature. Well, it's our job as people who are seeking the light, seeking to give the light, seeking to help, seeking to be kind, seeking to live the life accordingly, that we keep our frequency high so that we can show others how to do the same. And one of the basic practices that you can enjoy in your life is appreciating your breath, right? What does this do? Well, if you've ever heard of something called chakras, your body has energy centers. One of the most famous ones that we, know about, and it's not mysticism, it's not spookism, is simply your stomach. You have a ganglion of nerves in your stomach, behind your stomach wall, called the solar plexus. It's basically a ball of nerves that have an electrical impulse. Another one, obviously, is the heart chakra. These are energy centers. Your heart runs on and is beating because of electromagnetic pulses. Where does this electricity come from? It's not like you touch a being and you get shocked by their heart chakra per se, or their solar plexus. We can shock each other with static electricity. So it shows the ability of the body to be electrical, which should be something that you should definitely reflect on. But the heart and the stomach and having electrical impulses, and of course the mind, the brain, we should understand that we do have these specific energy centers within ourselves just by the scientific fact, right? Being a electrician myself, that was my trade. Electricity is a very phenomenal thing, and I mean that by the very word phenomenal. It's a phenom, it's a anomaly, it's something that is strange unto the natural world as we know it, because it's something that when channeled, it can do some pretty amazing things. It's like fire and water combined in one, if that makes any kind of sense. But that's a whole nother alchemy level or lesson that we won't particularly get into today. But those forces are inside of you. And when ones aren't controlling the breath, well, then the electrical system in your body, called your nervous system, can get out of sorts and get out of whack. Because in many instances, the way that your body processes the energy, the prana that you give it, has a lot to do with how it treats the circuits that deliver these life forces, the essences of life, this electrical impulse that keeps ones alive and moving. And these chakras, as we call them, are like the processing centers of this essence of life that we may call electricity or spirit and stuff like that, and determining how it is manifested in our bodies in the physical aspects. Okay, so we want to do that to keep good maintenance of these chakra systems, these energy systems, so that they're clean, they're working right, and that we as beings of God are activating and operating properly in the natural way. That's really what a lot of the issues come in. We aren't living our natural way, unfortunately. Okay, and so we're trying to get back to that, and breath definitely helps that. We see the animals; they're doing their natural thing. Man seems the only one sometimes a little bit hindered in his ability to fit in, because to fit in, you have to know yourself, right? You ever watch a bug and he's running around and he's doing his thing and you're wondering, what is he doing? What's his next move? Why is he making the moves he's making? He seems to be so confident in knowing what he's got to do and what his task in life is, but yet, man, he will stand around twiddling his thumbs trying to figure out what to do next. And so one of the most important things we can do is learn who we are, learn ourselves, know God. And when you come to that meditation and you ask him, who am I? And you conference with the Almighty, you'll be surprised at what you find is that you and him are one force, and he's working through you to do amazing things if you will but let him, right? So don't forget the diaphragm expansion, right? It helps to help your words when we're breathing, and we're making sure we're taking care of that. One thing about tuberculosis is that it has a propensity. Remember hearing about tuberculosis back in the day? That was a big thing that people were passing from. But in the upper regions of the lungs, specifically, I want to say in the right lung, in the upper corner, that's where tuberculosis usually was likened to form. And just by properly breathing and expanding the diaphragm and getting that oxygen to every square inch that you can of it can definitely help to disregard bacterial and certain microbiome diseases that will formulate in the lungs by getting them that fresh oxygen. All right. Expanding your lung capacity so that when you talk, your words are clear and you can have a nice, robust voice. And also breathing obviously helps with meditation. So when one goes into the recesses of the mind and starts to reflect on life, reflect on things, or not thinking of anything at all, which is the hardest thing to do in meditation, the breathing will definitely set you up, and breathing properly, breathing with intention will set you up for a proper experience in that realm. All right. So one of the reasons we talk about breath, because sometimes you got to take a deep breath to deal with some of the things we're dealing with right now. In the national way, We're going to talk real quick about how the world needs to take a breath, because there's a lot of things going on, especially with my people. I want to point out something right now. You may be aware that the United States, right, has voted no on in the United Nations forum over what they call it, a declaration of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. So the United Nations, some nations put a proposal to the floor that they vote to deem the transatlantic slave trade as the greatest atrocity in human history. And the United States voted no on that, right? Now that's interesting. Some may be very angry at this. I'm not neither angry or pleased with this decision. I just know the facts, and I know the history behind some of these things and why they would do that. So I'm going to try my best to explain a little bit of this to you in a timely manner. Okay. So there's no way, and this is going to be controversial. This might sound like what? There is no way that the so-called Black of America can receive these things. There was a letter, that was received by the UN from the ambassador. His name is Dan Negria, United States representative to United Nations Economic and Social Council. I'm going to read you a little bit of what he said, and we're going to pick it apart a little bit as to why they voted no. He says, "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States remains steadfast in its opposition to and condemnation of the historic wrongs that resulted from the transatlantic slave trade, the trans-Saharan slave trade, and all other forms of slavery. We remain committed to the acknowledgement that these are historical wrongs. Despite this, the United States observes that the text of this resolution remains highly problematic in countless respects. Consequently, the United States cannot support the adoption of this resolution. We regret that the United States must once again remind this body that the United Nations exists to maintain international peace and security. It was not founded to advance narrow, specific interests and agendas, to establish niche international days, or to create new, costly meeting and reporting mandates. This resolution does all three. The United States has defined long-standing objections to the framing of reparatory justice and the duty of reparation for historical wrongs. While we acknowledge the horrors of the past, we do not accept this resolution's assertion that historical facts from the 15th through 19th centuries constitute violations of just cogence, as that term is understood in contemporary international law. The United States also does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred. In addition to its obvious legal problems, here's the kicker. Here's where they get me, and this is where we got to talk about for a minute or two. This resolution is also unclear as to whom the recipients of reparatory justice would be. The drafters and supporters of this resolution seem to believe it is them. The United States strongly objects to the cynical usage of historical wrongs as a leverage point in an attempt to reallocate modern resources to people and nations who are distantly related to the historical victims. So then he goes into some other things. But basically what they say right there, they said that we know slavery is bad and shouldn't have been done. They said that, but the United Nations does not exist for what they're trying to do. And then they say they have always rejected long-standing objections to the framing of reparatory justice and the duty of reparation for historical wrongs. Because they said those are legal problems that, hey, slavery was legal back then, right? But here's the kicker. They said, to whom are the recipients? Who will receive these reparations? Now, Let's break this down real quick. What is a United Nations forum? It is a forum or a Congress or a delegation, a government of nations, right? That are united. The slave Africans, that's not a nation. What is a national? What is a nation? Everybody's got a little device, right? Let's just look up one quick definition. The legal definition of a national. Okay? You got to be a national to be a part of a nation. You have to have a nation to be a national, right? Somebody from, as we talked about, England, they're English, right? Okay, so slave, Africa. Africa's a continent. What nation is getting these reparations? Ghana spoke on it, but Nigeria would also fit in that bill, right? Many, but everybody knows they're talking about black so-called Americans. That's the first thought that comes to mind. So let's see what a national is. A nation has to have nationals. A national is a legally defined person as a person who owes permanent allegiance to a state. In the United States, this includes all citizens plus non-citizen nationals who, while not citizens, owe permanent allegiance to the U.S. Like persons born in America, Samoa, or the Swains Islands. All citizens are nationals, but not all nationals are citizens. So here we have the problem. What state are black slaves allegiant to? And what national name do they have to be able to be admitted funds or anything from the United Nationals, from the United Nations? You have to have a nation to sit at the table of the United Nations. Black slaves or descendants of slaves are not nations. This is what we're trying to say, that they're saying in a skewed way or in a legalese kind of way, that how could we pay anything to people who aren't a nation as a reparation? What injury did we do to them? Because at that time, they were no people. They were chattel property. So that would be like, in their mind or in the legal way, paying, a bunch of dogs who were put in dog fights, a bunch of bones, and saying, here's a whole bunch of bones. And then what would the dogs do with them? How would they be repaired because of that? The reparation has to come from the mind. It has to come from systems being built, bigger things being built. But before you get there, those people have to come together. And what could they come together on? Oh, we were all slaves. Well, the legal definition of slave may not be what you thought. I want slave to be pulled up real quick. And I want you to just think about this as we close out. We're going to see what a slave technically is, okay? All right. So, a slave, it comes from Slav. Wow, a noun. Let's go up to the word Slav then, since that's where slave comes from. A slave of Slav origin, as in Slavic, right? Akin to Oslav, Slovene, a Slavic people. A person speaking a Slavic language in his native tongue. So then it goes down back to slave. It says sklavis, from the reduction to slavery of many Slavic peoples of Central Europe. Wow. So a slave is technically an individual from Central Europe. So once again, nationality is the order of the day. Please do your due diligence and your research. I thank you for joining us today. But if you want to get reparations, if we want to be recognized as a people, we have to leave black, Negro, colored, African Americans in these names that denote to slavery, or chattel slavery as they called it, behind and come into our own. All nations must do this. If you're white, you have this same charge too, because where do you come from? Okay? All the ones sitting at the United Nations are Germany, France. You see what I'm saying? So something to think about. Much love and appreciation. We thank you for listening to us and being with us in our time here on the Sheik's table. There's much, much more, but that is for the next time, inshallah. Peace and love. Islam.